And this panel presentation, as I mentioned, is titled Student-Led Transformational Grassroots Leadership in Higher Education at the Imperial Valley-Mexicali border region. So a little bit about this session. We cannot begin to talk about innovation and sustainability at the California-Baja California borderlands without addressing the social justice efforts and innovation of our youth at the borderlands today. Students in higher education at the Imperial Valley-Mexicali border region are underserved, and there are few studies that illustrate their challenges, resiliencies, and lived realities at the borderlands. In spite of the challenges, students at San Diego State University Imperial Valley have come together since the inception of the COVID-19 pandemic and implemented innovative grassroots practices towards fostering the social justice of all students on campus. Today, post-COVID-19, they continue to implement trailblazing initiatives in higher education at the borderlands. In this session, the student leaders from the Chicanx Fronteras student organization, Parenthood Generation Action, and associated students at San Diego State University Imperial Valley will discuss their practices towards social justice and provide advice to educators teaching, living, and learning at the California-Baja California borderlands. So also just a little bit about how we arrived to the findings of today's session, as well as our panel presentation. So we did apply a collaborative autoethnographic approach to exploring the student-led transformational leadership of today's panelists. And for that, we also applied methodologies, specifically photo voice, as well as pláticas, which consisted of 5 Zoom sessions where we explored their leadership through their pictures and through conversations. And through these pláticas and photo voice analysis collaboratively, we arrived to the findings of this session, which are overarching, focused on ethnic studies, gender equity, and this trans-border critical consciousness here at the Calexico-Mexicali border region. Ask all of you a question, and we want to encourage you to engage in dialogue and exploring the insights of this question through our Padlet link QR code, which is provided here in the screen. And our question to you is, what does sustainability and innovation at the Imperial Valley-Mexicali border region mean to you? So take a moment to explore that question, and we look forward to your answers. We welcome your answers to this question in the following Padlet link here, where you can access the link by scanning the QR code. Thank you. So now to the exciting part of today's session, which is the findings and insights from our panelists. So we'll start with Carlos. Please take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Falcone, and thank you to everyone who is listening to us. So my answer to the previous question, what does sustainability and innovation means to me within the academic setting, is basically utilizing advocacy and activism among students and all of those allies of students to create representative programs across universities like SDSU Imperial Valley. And what we see in the screen, which is a picture of a mural. This mural was painted inside the student union last year. And it's really one of the different ways of activism that was that emerged from the Chicano and Chicana Studies Task Force that was created last year as well, as a way to represent our identity as people in the border, students in the border, people of color who are constantly influenced by Latino and Mexican images across the border. And that's really what we want to see within our university and for the future students who will be coming to SDSU Imperial Valley, or really any institution that is serving minorities. And the quote that we see in the screen says, "This revolution should have happened decades ago. Now students are leading it and it will get it done." And this quote is directly related to our advocacy of establishing a Chicano and Chicana studies minor, which falls under the category of ethnic studies. And as we know, there is already a lot of legislative pieces from the state and from the nation that require ethnic studies to be part of higher education. But what is interesting is that in the 60 something years of SDSU Imperial Valley, there is not a lot of offerings in terms of courses and support services that really boost and help students to foster their identities as Chicanos, Mexican Americans, or transborder students. And that's what we want to advocate, and that's what we did last year through different lines of advocacy and activism, using the arts, using our relations and mentoring with our faculties, creating different programs with our students, and the emergence of the Cross-Cultural Center as one of the activism lines of fostering the identity development and identity construction of our students. So it is innovation because especially in rural regions as Imperial and Mexicali, um, there's not a lot of embracing or identities. There is not a lot of education to students who want to learn about their history, and they are not given the option. So through our advocacy as students and through our activism with different campus partners, students, faculty, staff, and people from our community who are leading these efforts, we are now bringing these different opportunities to our students. As of this semester, fall 2022, our students have the opportunity to enroll in Chicano Studies 355, which is one of the results of our advocacy. And these students are learning not only about the Chicano identity, but also about the border dynamics, because this class is emphasized in those relationships that exist in rural regions across both sides of the border. And that fosters the identity of students as Hispanics, Latinos, but also as people who live within the border.
Hello, and again, thank you for being here today and watching our presentation. Again, my name is Jasmine Horton Alvarado, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, or ella, and I'm excited to speak today on a topic that I'm very passionate about. A little bit about me before I dive in. I am a queer graduate student studying social work at SDSU-IV, and for a few years now, I have been re-educating myself on various topics, rediscovering my roots by learning my family's native language of Spanish, and combating stigma against reproductive rights. And I really started this work back in late 2020 when I was organizing donation drives to support local nonprofit organizations through a student club called the Students of Social Work Association. And it was really through these outreach efforts that I met Maribel Padilla, who is a community organizer for Planned Parenthood here in Imperial County. And we discussed statistics of STD rates, barriers for implementing comprehensive sex ed, and how our community is lacking in resources for sexual and reproductive health. Imperial County holds one of the highest rates of STDs and adolescent birth rates in the entire state of California. And finding out this information, I felt something in me that needed to know more, but more importantly, needed to share and find ways so others had this information as well. So I used being an SDSU-IV student to found Planned Parenthood Generation Action along with my fellow panelists, Carlos and Christy. And we all had this common understanding and goal that reproductive health and rights were for all people, and especially for us at SDSU-IV. And I think all of us went into this with little to no information on the intricacies and complexities of reproduction. You know, what did reproduction even mean? What body parts are involved in that? And how do you take care of your body and health? And then we started asking, what services does our university provide? And more specifically here on our campus in IV. We had so many questions and a lot of learning to do about the history of reproductive rights, what laws protect those rights, and who is included in those laws of protection. Because PPGA at its forefront includes intersectionality. For us, we are not a single aspect of ourselves. We show up fully. Women, queer, transfronteris, and every facet that makes us beautiful and worthy of making decisions about our body and health. During the past 3 years, the entire world has been affected and changed by COVID-19. And PPGA made it a point to stay active despite the limitations and barriers that happened because of COVID-19. We got creative and developed events that provided SDSU-IV students with period products, contraceptives, informational brochures on STDs and unwanted pregnancies. We used social media to say abortion and educate on menstruation to break stigma and to start normalizing what has become taboo or dirty or secret in our culture and our community. We advocated to bring free period products and condom dispensers to our campus so that our students can have access to them anytime that they need them while they're here on our campus. Our work has been recognized locally through newspaper articles here in our county, on a state level with Congressman Juan Vargas, who you see in this picture here. We've also been recognized nationally and globally through Planned Parenthood Federation of America. PBGA has even been featured in LA Times. We've been invited to speak to politicians and lobbied at the state level, and we've attended events with professionals in the field of reproductive health and wellness. PBGA has been granted with a $2,500 grant to continue and sustain this work, which now is even more critical than ever. With the overturning of Roe versus Wade, our nation has seen a flood of abortion bans, bans for trans health, and school systems erase sexual education for students. And young people, students, are the ones who are paving a way for a brighter, more inclusive, and safe future for ourselves. And we're seeing this all around the world with youth who are fighting against femicide, bans on bodies, and limitations to health services. PBGA recognizes that work, and our work stands with it. It is us as students who understood that there needed to be a voice for our community here in the Imperial Valley region, and who speak very loudly about it. And now PPGA is working on sustainability efforts, and we're really pushing for incoming freshmen on our campus to take a comprehensive sexual education session in their general courses called Making Proud Choices, because we know that our school systems here and largely, worldwide, do not prepare young people on how to feel confident about their sexuality and actions. And we know this because of the statistics. We know this because of personal stories that have been shared with us. And we know this because the work that we do when we're out in the community and here on campus, we are often told that they had no idea anything about reproduction, their rights, health, and well-being. And so the time to fight has always been there, and it still exists today. And so I really thank you for being here and listening to us as students who are leading the way in very important topics and aspects of our life and our well-being.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasmine. So hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Christy Jimenez. I am also a master's social work student here at San Diego State University, Imperial Valley. And talking about Jasmine, who had previously spoken about PPGA, I am also VP of Internal Affairs for Planned Parenthood Generation Action. And at first, I was a bit hesitant to take part of student leadership, especially as a master's student. I was still working full-time at the time when Jasmine asked me to be part of this amazing project. This was back in early 2021, and we were still going through quarantine at the time too. But I remember thinking to myself, this is important work, Christy. This is something totally new and much needed on campus, especially at our small Imperial Valley campus, where a lot of these topics about sex, reproductive health, and relationships are such a taboo topic. After taking the time to reflect, I was all in and immediately got to work alongside Jasmine and Maribel Padilla, and along with other great individuals who helped build PPGA, which you can see here on the picture. Shout out to Emma, to Denise, Susana, and Carlos, of course, who's also here in this panel. As previously mentioned by Jasmine, PPGA has been able to accomplish so much and break so much barriers. One of them was organizing the Care for You drive-through during the summer of 2020. And that's actually the picture above, the one with the beautiful pink Planned Parenthood tablecloth. And as many of you know, drive-throughs were the way to go, especially back during quarantine. So this was one of those events. And we had this amazing idea to have a drive-through goodie bag distribution to SDSU-IV students with condoms, pregnancy tests, period products, Plan B pills, brochures with information regarding STDs, pregnancy, and healthcare services that Planned Parenthood offers, and much more. We even added candy in there too. A good number of students signed up for the goodie bags. It was all discreet and anonymous via a Google form. And all students needed to do was show up, just let us know their name, their red ID, which is the student IDs, and they were set. And specifically, I remember just a little anecdote. One of the students at SDSU came up to me and, asked for his goodie bag. And mind you, this is in a parking lot in 120-degree weather. We were sweating profusely, but we were all very happy to be there. And so were the students too. So he asked for his goodie bag, and after receiving it, he told me, you know what, I'm so glad you guys are doing this. I'm a student right now at SDSU, and I have 3 kids, and my lady and I can't afford to have any more kids. You guys are awesome, really. I never knew this was offered. And I never forgot him or his words. And it made me so happy to hear that we were able to make a difference in students' lives, and that these topics were becoming to be destigmatized. Oftentimes, when we think of student support, we often think academic and counseling services, which is important, but sometimes people don't consider that student support encompasses much more than that, like student health needs, basic necessities, and overall mental well-being as well. We as student leaders might not have realized at the moment, but we were breaking the status quo and making history in our community. So kind of to tie it back to this quote that I chose here, it's important to challenge the status quo through collaboration, compassion, and care for one another as an institution and within the community. And of course, we wouldn't be able to accomplish this important event without the collaboration of the LGBT Resource Center of Imperial Valley, not just with this specific event, but with other events that we have taken part of here in the community. Going back to the LGBT Resource Center, they've been really extremely helpful since PPGA's creation and throughout our journey in community outreach and organizing. And the Care for You drive-through was actually a collaboration with not only the Resource Center, but also with Calexico Wellness Center and the Brown Bag Coalition. Also, something noteworthy to mention is that our SDSU staff member and our PPGA advisor, Susana, was there with us since the beginning and continues to be there for us through her advocacy and care on campus. As a collective, we're able to collaborate and provide the community with important health resources, especially during the summer and during quarantine. And we still continue to cultivate these relationships. Just to tie it all together, collaboration, compassion, and care rooted in our community is and will continue to be at the forefront of our work. This is how we sustain what we have cultivated and continue to innovate our work.
My name is Ismael Arvizu. I am a Chicanx Studies student of SDSU with a minor in film. And I was lucky enough to have the privilege to work with Dr. Falcon as her first student assistant for the cross-cultural center from 2021 to 2022. And I remember just a little bit over a year ago, we were talking about being in this Reboarded conference, and it's amazing to be here and to be here and spreading the information of the accomplishments that the school has been able to do in such a small amount of time. I myself was I was a creator for some of the films and videos we made for the Cross Cultural Center. One of them being the Building Bridges Graduation 2020, that trailer. So we have like a 5-minute video that I want to show you guys that kind of gives you the synopsis of what the Building Bridges graduation is. And its emphasis, in my eyes, is empowering transfronterizo scholars and the community of their family members and everyone around them. So a quote I have that I was always saying to myself was that we can build a bridge here, that we can build anywhere along the border. And these bridges are something that are hard to think of or to conceptualize, because that border breaks a lot of those bridges that we wish we had. But knowing that we can do this is the first step to doing a lot of things. And later on in the video, we're gonna hear Carlos say how this can be a big domino effect to empower many other scholars from different ages, from different sides of the nation and on the southern border.
SDSU Imperial Valley's Cross-Cultural Center hosted the first ever Building Bridges Binational graduation ceremony, meant to create a celebratory space for family members who were unable to participate in the main graduation held in Calexico. A Transfronteriza student is one who commutes through the border to pursue their dreams of higher education. In most cases, Transfronteriza students have been left out of the conversation and their needs have not been seriously addressed in the past. Dr. Vanessa Falcón Horta had a vision since before the pandemic started of fighting for the needs of Transfronteriza students. This graduation is a major milestone in her journey of advocating for the trans-border community. This event would not have been able to happen without the student support of grassroots organizations and volunteers from SDSU-IV, Associated Students, and the Chicanx Fronteras Club. During the spring semester, students organized through committee meetings and networked with staff around campus to help create a smooth, enjoyable, and more than anything, a memorable experience to celebrate these students' academic journey.
Están aquí por ellos, están aquí porque su resiliencia, tenacidad y las ganas de salir adelante fue más fuerte que el obstáculo de un muro, fue más fuerte que una pandemia, fue más fuerte que las políticas y las fronteras que dividen ciudades, comunidades y familias.
The Building Bridges graduation is rooted in social justice, because with the effort, with the initiative of providing the graduation ceremony in Mexicali, in Mexico, now they have the opportunity to celebrate with their loved ones in spite of the obstacle of the border. And really, it's a way to create a bridge between both nations through unity, compassion, and care.
Hagan lo que hagan, hagan con amor, porque lo que se hace con amor está bien hecho.
All of these students, these wonderful human beings, see them in 5 years, right here organizing crossing bridges with me and Dr. Falcón and Dr. Lopez, and being them the mentors that this community needs. Because by having them as part of this team, even though they're part of this team now, but having them as professors, as faculty, will mean that we're doing a good job. You know, like Dr. Reyes says.
El buen mentor es el que enseña a sus alumnos a ser mejor que el mentor. Ustedes van a ser mejores que yo sé, porque tienen madera, tienen ganas.
Al mostrar un papelito y decir I am American citizen, porque las puertas se abren inmediatamente, porque sí, poco a poco estamos recuperando lo que siempre ha sido nuestro, porque poco a poco estamos recuperando el territorio robado. No olvidemos lo afortunados que somos, porque esta graduación es la primera en su índole. Otros estudiantes transfronterizos en las fronteras de San Diego, Tijuana o El Paso, Juárez, aún no han podido romper el estigma de lo que es ser transfronterizo, transfronterizo o transfronterizo.
El impacto más grande de esta iniciativa de la graduación Construyendo Puentes es simplemente ver a las familias congregadas al otro lado de la frontera para celebrar los logros académicos y un logro de vida de nuestros estudiantes que se están graduando. Y más allá de eso, el romper las barreras institucionales y financieras para poder llevar a cabo este tipo de iniciativas es lo que considero el mayor impacto de esta graduación. En el futuro yo miro la graduación Building Bridges o Construyendo Puentes como una ceremonia más comprensiva y más extensa, que haga una invitación no solo a estudiantes de la comunidad de SDSU, pero también a estudiantes que se están graduando de la preparatoria o high school o del colegio comunitario, para que de esa forma todos los miembros de nuestra región fronteriza puedan celebrar sus logros académicos y celebrar con su familia sin distinción de la institución.
The Building Bridges graduation is a long-lasting initiative ignited at SDSU Imperial Valley dedicated to advocating for the social justice of our Transfronterice student community in our region.
To invite all of you for our guests here as you explore what innovation and sustainability means. Also, what does that mean in regards to supporting the sustainability and innovation of our the leadership that is implemented by students, and how can we sustain these efforts? So leading on that topic, we move on to our next slide, which is focused on advice to campus leaders. So to conclude this session, to conclude today's panel presentation, what we want to ask, of course, our panelists is to explore how to sustain the innovation and sustainability, and specifically the leadership of your students, of our students at the Imperial Valley-Mexicali border region. So engaged in that question, how can you sustain and support their efforts and their leadership? And you're welcome to provide your responses in the Padlet link that we will show in a moment. But also we ask students, we ask our panelists here today, a panel of exemplar, excellent graduate students, alum from SDSU Imperial Valley, the question, which is, what advice would you give campus leaders to foster the innovation and sustainability of student-led transformational leadership in higher education at the Imperial Valley-Mexicali border region?
Specifically on the area of ethnic studies and identity development of our students, I provide two different pieces of advice. The first one is assess institutional curriculum and support services to foster identity development through ethnic studies. That's very easy, very straightforward. All institutional leaders, deans, directors, vice presidents, even the presidents from institution, they all need to look at what the institution is doing to serve the different students from underrepresented minorities, and how can we foster the identity construction, the identity development, and the identity celebration through the different curriculum pieces, providing classes that are specific for these students, but also providing these services. And as we saw right now with Ismael's presentation, the Building Bridges graduation is one of those support services that directly fosters the identity of transborder students. My second piece of advice for institutional leaders is to reinforce the student activism through institutional accountability and embrace the student initiatives as campus priorities.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Carlos just mentioned. So my piece of advice is to really honor student-led initiatives and the leadership that students are showing by providing spaces and opportunities for them to share their stories with larger audiences and providing them appropriate support. And I think with this, it's important to understand what appropriate support means when we talk about how we can cultivate and sustain student-led initiatives and projects and leadership. I say this because oftentimes students might have the opportunity, and this is very rare, but student-led initiatives might have the opportunity to speak to administrators or anyone higher up on the projects that they're working on and the very important work that we do as students. But oftentimes we are just listened to and not really heard about what our needs and our wants are for creating a campus environment, a learning environment where it supports us as students and our success in the future. And like Carlos mentioned, a lot of times when students do speak up about things that they need and they want to see their campus provide for them and their university provide for them, their faculty provide for them, their administration provide for them, it's often met with this passive listening or just direct censorship, like Carlos mentioned. So there really aren't these spaces to share the really important work that students are doing. And there's that appropriate support and that responsive support, that immediate support isn't readily available for students. And so I really would just ask to reflect on what students have approached you regarding projects, initiatives that they've done and they're leading, or they want to start and they need advice on how to do, and really support that through facilitating these larger audiences and through active listening and an understanding of what the students are trying to convey through these projects and through these initiatives.
Piggyback on what Jasmine and Carlos, of course, had mentioned, is to provide allyship to students on important topics such as reproductive health and help bridge the health need gaps on campus. So yes, just what Jasmine had mentioned, it does relate to this. So we do need more campus community staff, faculty, just leaders in general to be more, provide that allyship to us students. So they don't need to fully, you know, be in the know of everything that we're doing, because I know that a lot of, you know, faculty and staff are very spread thin, but at least to provide that support and really that listening ear to really hear out what we're saying and just be there in whatever way that we need. And one example who, you know, there's many great examples, but one example that comes to mind is, for example, Susana, you know, who's part of student affairs. She's always there to listen to us students. She, you know, makes things happen, and, you know, she asks these questions to us students when she, you know, let's say doesn't understand something, or, you know, wants to explore whatever that we're doing more. And that's because she's actually curious and interested in what we students are working on. So I think we need more of that here on campus. Of course, someone else who is a great example is Dr. Vanessa Falcon. She has always been that ally also to us students and listening to our needs, and of course, you know, making things happen as well. So we need more staff members and more faculty like that. And my other piece of advice would be to fund more culturally humble student affairs professionals to support our growing Imperial Valley campus students in needs. And it kind of relates to what I had previously mentioned. I know that a lot of the, you know, working as a graduate student, I see that need with the students, but I also see that it trickles down. I see that a lot of staff and, you know, faculty members are spread thin and there is not much support. And I think that that funding needs to be there to fund a more complete team to support us students. So I think for one great example is like us students, we deserve a full team of people who are of financial aid, not just one single person, you know, or we need a full team of economic crisis response team, right? So that is another call of action that I would like to ask to, you know, whoever is listening. Imperial Valley students, we need these services, and we've been working towards them, not just asking for them, but really truly working collaboratively with anyone towards these goals.
They're saying like, validating a student goes so much further than like specifically giving them material things, you know? If you can give that student a mentor, someone that can take care of their like someone that they can like pues que desahogarse, like just being validated of feeling like a student. And because sometimes as a student you feel like you don't belong there, you have the imposter syndrome, and you just want to drop off. And if there's no one there to tell you, no, you should be here, no, you worked here, you worked to get here, you worked hard enough to not leave and drop it all behind you. So if you don't have those people, va a estar más difícil, you know, so much further.
Thank you all for your insights, as well as overall just brilliance in your work. So we are concluding our session with the advice to campus leaders. And just to recap, and you know, just to paraphrase and summarize, the advice to campus leaders is focused on honoring the student-led initiatives implemented by grassroots student organizations, by associated students, by Planned Parenthood Generation Action, just a few examples here highlighted. So honoring and also making it priority, their leadership in order to foster this innovation, but also make it sustainable. Important also are allies. Allies are also important in this trajectory, and spaces of dialogue, spaces to talk about these efforts, these leadership initiatives. But beyond that, also recognition, as we saw, students, their work has been locally, nationally, and even globally recognized. The institutional recognition is also important. So just to recap and to summarize, these are the advice to campus leaders at the Imperial Valley and Mexicali border region, but also advice that can be applied along the California-Baja California borderlands. So for campus leaders at the San Diego-Tijuana border region, this is also advice that you can apply. And in regards to examples that are already exemplifying that type of advice. For example, today's session is the type of environment and context that is important and needed to highlight student voices. So really kudos here to the Reborder Conference in that. Also along the lines of sustainability, for example, the Building Bridges graduation. Once again, we have the support to implement it next year, but also it's going to be implemented at the San Diego-Tijuana border region as well. So that is an immense success. So for our audience joining us here, we just want to leave you with these pieces of advice for you, but also we just want to end and conclude by welcoming your questions. So if you have any questions for our overall session, you are welcome to post your questions here in the Padlet link provided.